Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Straight Talk Radio. I'm your host, Blair Nash, coming to you live, and I have my co-host, Ted Santos. Ted, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, friends and family, for joining us. We are looking forward to a show that you may find quite controversial, and I think it's going to be exciting and very engaging.
Yeah, I was telling Ted I hope I have some friends after this show, so it's going to be one of those shows. We kind of did a thing over the past where we just are more just kind of focused on a number of other topics and everything. But this show is going to be very interesting because we're going to kind of speak on a topic that a lot of it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people don't really. It's one of those kind of elephant in the room topics. And the topic,
exactly.
Tell them what the topic is this evening.
Yep. So let me, Blair, I just want to say that no question, this is a radio show that was created by men and it's for men. And at the same time, we see this platform as an excellent way for women to really understand how men actually think. Like, how do we really talk amongst one another? And as what Blair just said, the things that people really don't want to discuss, whether you call it political correctness, the dead elephant in the room that no one wants to discuss. So as much as this show is for men, it's also to help ladies. And this show is going to be rather controversial for some people. And some of those ladies who may have an affinity for me, you may not have as much affinity for me. And before you get upset and saying that saying things that you don't like about women, I ask that you really take a step back and hear what myself, Blair, and I'm strongly encouraging the fellas to call in. And fellas, I'm saying this to you because some of these conversations we're about to have, I have them with women, and women may often think, well, that's your opinion. So I need you guys to step in, get in this call, and we're going to talk about something that Blair and I read this article about China, and in China, the way they see marriage and relationships, if a woman hits 30 years old, they have a name for her. It's called Shen Nu. Shen, S-H-E-N, Nu, N-U. And Shen Nu means leftover. So a woman hits 30, she's seen as a Shen Nu, a leftover. And no one wants a leftover. So women are strongly encouraged to marry before they hit 30 years old so that they won't have such a hard time finding a husband. And there is a lot of pressure, and those children tend to listen to their parents. However, there are two phenomena occurring in China. One is a lot of Chinese are going abroad, like to Europe and the United States to study in college, and they're coming back with these new ideals and wanting to marry later. And we're going to talk about this idea of Shen Nu. And the other thing that's happening is there are, back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of women aborted girls. So now there's a surplus of men, like 30 million more men than women. And that's creating a problem for men to find women. So what you may find is some of these women called Shen Nu may be able to find husbands. However, the real thought here is if Shen Nu is a leftover in China, should we embrace this kind of philosophy in the U.S.? Should men start to look at women as hitting 30 and being not necessarily the best choice, an optimum choice for marriage? So we're going to open up, when we open up the lines, I really want to hear from guys. And I think this philosophy does exist in the U.S., We're just covert about it. We're more politically correct. When a woman, you ladies have a much smaller window of opportunity. And if you look at it as a football game, from 15 to 19, you ladies are in the first quarter and you're having fun. The guys are chasing you. Second quarter, you're from 20 to 24, and still guys are chasing you. But by 25 to 30, things start to change for you. And that fourth quarter is the last quarter of the game, from 30 to 35 to 34. Men actually start looking at you differently. And I'm going to say some of the things, and Blair, you'll have thoughts about this too. But I'd like to hear from some of the guys and what they say about this. So some of my thoughts about this, about women who do think it's okay to wait for marriage, it's not as cut and dry as some of you ladies. There are a few things for you to consider, and one is they've done a lot of research in looking at women who have multiple sexual partners, and what they found was women who had, the number started at 6. When a woman had 6 sexual partners, she's 3 times more likely to have an unstable relationship. And some of you may say, well, maybe she's unstable, and that's why she has so many partners. Maybe, but there's a neuroscience behind it, and I'll talk about some of that a little later on the call. But the more women the more sexual partners a woman has, over 6, the less likely her marriage is to work out. So the woman who has 1 or 2 sexual partners and marries, her chances of a successful marriage are significantly higher than a woman who has 3, 6, 10, or 20. As those numbers go up, the emotional stability goes down. There's another thing, and this is what some of you ladies may find most controversial about what I'm going to say. And we hear a lot of women who talk about they are getting a great education and they're going to have a great job. Well, fellas, I'm going to ask you to consider another way. And maybe someone is called in and you're moving around. I have a request. If you've called in, can you put your phone on mute, because there's a lot of noise in the background.
Right.
So, fellas,
absolutely.
Fellas, for you guys, I'm going to ask you to look at women who pontificate and brag about their college degrees and their jobs, which I'm all for education, and it's great when you can have a profession, when you have a professional wife. But let's look at this another way. A high school athlete goes to college to play professional basketball, football, baseball, whatever it is. And what we tell that person to do is make sure you get your education as a backup plan. Because if you get hurt in sports or you don't make the professionals, at least you have your education. You can fall back on that. Now, you get a guy like LeBron James. He comes out of high school, and his attitude is, I am the backup plan. And he not only does he make it in the pros, he becomes a star, and he's, considered the greatest of all time. So he was the backup plan. The ladies who go to college, they get a great job. Their education and job is a backup plan for when they fail at marriage. So they've become so focused and obsessed with the job and the education that they actually never learn how to be a wife and how to build a marriage with a man. And I know some people who have some other thoughts on, like, what's the real purpose of marriage. And I'd love to have you guys call in. So ladies who want to wait, I'm asserting that men are already looking at you in not the most favorable way once you cross 30, and especially 35 and 40 and you hit 50. You're seen very differently than a woman who's 25. And your backup plan, it's great to have an education. But if your backup plan is so that you can be a wife who's very dismissive to her husband and walk away. Blair, what are the stats on divorces? Because a lot of women may think men are walking away from marriages, but what are the actual stats? Who makes the request for divorce most of the time, and what are the stats?
I'd be happy. I'd be delighted to tell you. So, yeah, like you said, it's so interesting, Ted, because when we talk about marriage, we always have this kind of this misnomer that, you know, guys don't want to be married. Guys don't want to be married. Well, if you go to any sort of like realistic, legitimate source, whether it be Pew Research, whether it be Google, whatever, it will tell you very clearly that 70%
Wow.
of women
Wow.
file for divorce. So
Wow.
the first thing you have to add, you know, so then when I tell women this, like I did a workshop and I told them, I said 70% of women file for divorce. And they said, well, that's because men don't be acting right in the marriage and everything. And I said, well, wait a second, you know, let's go back just a moment. So this is a guy who you properly vetted out, right? This is a guy that you said that, you know, hey, I know this guy, you know, back to front. You know, I've asked all the questions. I've gotten all the information. I've gotten all the 70% is a huge number. The issue is and I don't want to veer away from marriage too much, but I will speak on the whole idea of divorce. We live in a society right now that actually not allows, but we live in a society that gives women a lot of benefit for actually filing for divorce. You know, when you file for divorce, let's say you're husband and wife, you know, woman walks down one day, I don't want to be married to you. Doesn't even matter the reason, whether she wants to go back to her ex, whether she just wants to run the streets, whether she's just tired of looking at him. I don't want to be bothered with you anymore, right? So now you're in a situation where, okay, she doesn't want to be married anymore. Now, who usually leaves the home? The man does. So now he has to go find a residence of his own to, you know, be at, whether he crashes at his boy's house or he has to go get a little, you know, no-bedroom apartment or whatever. Right. To just kind of, you know, stay where he's at. So not only does he have to do that, but he also has to still pay the mortgage on the home. We haven't even put into the factor of having children. You know, when you have children now you have to have your own residence, pay whatever you have, pay the mortgage on your current home, pay your wife alimony, and then still in addition to that, still pay money to see your kids, which of course that goes into a whole other chasm because now you got to play with the courts and everything else. So going all the way back to it, 70% of women file for divorce. Why is that the case? Well, as I said, because they are given benefit and given a lot of opportunities if they file for divorce. So the whole idea of marriage, there's really no incentive for a lot of women to stay married because they're like, you know what, if he doesn't go along with my program, then all I got to do is pull the cord on this marriage, and voila, he's going to be in a much worse situation than I am. All the stats prove it, ladies. There's just no getting around it. So that's what we're here to talk about this evening. Oh yeah.
So Blair, there are a few other things I could say, but let's see who's on the line.
Yeah, I was going to say we have a couple callers and everything, so let me try to bring one caller in. Hold on just a moment. Caller, you are on the air. Area code 205. Go ahead and speak, please.
Who has a 205 area code? Maybe they have us on mute. Give them a second to work that out.
Caller, are you there? Nobody answered. Okay.
Someone. Well, they may just want to listen and not talk. So.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's try another one real quick. Hold on a minute. Caller, you are on the air.
What's the area code?
Area code is 818.
818 area code.
Hello, caller. All right, so we're going to table that for a moment. We're going to pick up some more calls here in a little bit. So we'll just keep going full steam ahead. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with. The situation is such in the United States that men are somewhat disincentivized in the aspect of wanting to get married. As I said, when you think about the whole notion that a woman can wake up pretty much at any given time and decide she doesn't want to be married. As I said, for whatever the reason is, she can wake up and say, I just simply don't want to be married to you anymore, or I don't want to be married anymore. It doesn't matter. And at that point, the man is on a downward roller coaster from there. And this is where a lot of men are get very skittish and very have a lot of anxiety about marriage, because they realize, even if if I make $200,000 a year, that's one thing. But even if I only make $50,000 a year, that's going to severely impact my income and my quality of life. And so men see it as a huge risk, and for the most part, men just aren't risk takers anymore. That's why they elect to.
Look, Blair, what do you think of this Shen Nu? Like in China, they're calling women leftovers. I mean, do you think that has an impact on, since so many women are waiting longer, do you think that can also have an impact on a man choosing to marry?
You said, does it have an impact?
Yeah, well, you're saying some men are electing to avoid marriage, and so yes, the court system may be in favor, but what if there's, I'm wondering, what if there's also so many women have waited for marriage, and so many women have been told they can do everything a man does, and the findings are women sleep with a lot of guys, it's more than 5. That emotional instability starts to kick in, and that you could be very undesirable for once the man really gets to know you. Marriage may be a bad idea, especially combining that with a court system that's going to be in her favor, and she's already become somewhat unstable.
Right.
And yes, so I do think that has an impact, and women believing that waiting is in their best interest, and maybe it's not.
Good question. Very good question. Let me say one quick thing. I see a few more callers have called in. I am going to get to you momentarily, so just hold the line, please. I promise you I'm going to get to you. But back to your question, it definitely has an impact. Because of what I do, as I said, I'm an author. I have, my social media following. I've done blogs. I've spoke to people, et cetera, et cetera. I do coaching. And one of the things that I really struggle with in speaking with a lot of our women is the level of ego sometimes that is there when you are trying to tell them things that are very obvious. I always tell women, I say, if you can kind of unclench your face for just a second and listen to what I'm saying, I'm not here to be mean. I'm not here to bully you. I promise you. I am here to help you. I'm here to be an ally. And if you see someone, and I gave an illustration. You and I have had a number of talks, kind of offline. And I gave an illustration one time of LeBron James. And for any of you, I'm sure everybody knows who LeBron James is, but maybe a lot of people don't really know kind of how his career has been. When LeBron first came out, they were like, okay, he's going to be a generational game changer. You just knew it. But it took him a really long time to actually win a title. Why? Because although LeBron was extremely talented, although he was gifted beyond belief, there were a number of things that were flawed in his game. And so people were like, hey, you need a consistent little, mid-range jumper and everything, or you need to get them free throws together, and you need a post game in order to really be dominant. Once you get a post game, dude, it's a wrap. It is a wrap. So, he went through, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and no post game. And people were screaming like, you could possibly go down as the greatest basketball player ever, but you need a post game. Finally, I believe it was year 8, end of the season, year 8 and everything. They got knocked out the finals. He went and worked out with Akeem Olajuwon. Got a post game, boom, came back, won a ring. Now he uses post game, boom, won a ring the next year. And then unfortunately, what's happened is he's kind of reverted back to his old ways of not being a post-up player. He wants to kind of,
wow.
Yeah, he kind of wants to go through the lane and play what we call bully ball, and that will work sometimes, but you can't do that each and every time. So I equate that to a lot of times how it is in talking with a lot of our women, in that I'm not here to tell you that you don't have a lot of the intangibles that you need. What I'm saying to you is that there are a few missing components that you don't see, that a person who's kind of sitting on the bench is like, oh, I see. That's clear as crystal. I see that. I see it. And so what I try to help women to understand is I am your ally. I swear to God I am. And so going back to, the question, does it have an impact? Absolutely it does. Why? Because what we have to do, a lot of us as black men, myself, you, and other men that I kind of am surrounded around, and I have tried to, speak with women, is we are having to somewhat deprogram a lot of our women from a lot of stuff they've been taught over decades, really. So the idea that I'll be the first to tell you, I get frustrated. There's times where I'm just like, throw the paper in the air and like, it's just way out of my head. I mean, it's just way out of my lane. But there's a lot of things that I won't even say a lot of things, but there are a number of things that our women don't really see. Why? Because they're in the game. And again, like I use LeBron, just like LeBron, he thought he was the greatest, and then he started meeting people who may not have been as gifted talent-wise, but they realized, okay, he's just going to run through the lane. All I got to do is just stand there, and they're going to call the foul on him. And so for a lot of our women, they don't understand that there are some basic things that you have to understand about men. There are some things that you have to understand about dating. And you have to, and I was having a conversation, I'm gonna be done then. I was having a conversation online with some gentlemen today, and someone said something very, very profound. They said, women have to learn how to position themselves properly in order to meet that quality guy.
Well,
you can't think that,
target market. Right. You have to know your target market.
You can't think, well, I got beautiful skin and I got a good career and I've always got men. Well, you always have men talking with you, but are men actually trying to make anything happen with you? You can't sit here and go over decades of time and think that, a person is going to buy the idea, I just don't want a guy right now. That doesn't fly. For men who use logic and who are looking in at the situation, they're looking at it like, that don't really sound right. So this is where I think this is where people like myself, this is one of the reasons why we have this show, and this is why a lot of people just kind of are like, we need our women to understand something, because, sweethearts, ladies, you are losing the game out here. And some of the women have lost the game, and then they're mad because they're like, these men here. No, it's not the men. You got to learn the game. You have to. So,
well, and Blair, just something. It's with the feminist movement really did sort of infect all women. With this has infected all women in the U.S. It started to go abroad, but just telling women they can do everything a man can do without really logically thinking that through was an inaccurate statement to have them believe in. So who do we have on the line here?
Yeah, I was going to say, let me grab up. We have a number of calls here, so let me grab one right now. Caller, go right ahead. 513 area code. Go ahead, please.
513 area code. Can you hear us?
Hey,
yes. Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, go right ahead, caller.
Hey, what's going on, Blair? How you doing?
Not too bad. State your name and where you're calling from, please.
This is Solomon. I'm calling from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hey, Solomon. Thanks for calling.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. Did you have a comment? Did you have a question, or what was your thoughts on what we were saying?
Oh,
so Solomon, what do you think of what I was saying about women who wait a long time? Is your comment about that or something else?
Well, yeah, I was going to comment on that too. First off, I think your analogy using LeBron was great, because here's the irony. A lot of women, when you look at LeBron, the goal is to win the ring, to win multitudes of rings. That's the ultimate goal, pun intended with the ring part. So when you look at that, women, I feel like, have the tendency to look at it like, well, even if I don't win the ring, I'll go down as the greatest. Like, you know, if you look at LeBron's career right now, he's on pace to probably be the all-time leading scorer. You know, he gets jokes. I hear it all the time about how it seems like he's a stat stuffer, like he just wants to lead in all the categories, even though he doesn't have a lot of rings. And it's funny, but it's like, again, you hit the nail on the head mentioning that, because I feel like you have a lot of women that think that way, like, well, even if I don't get the prize or get the ring, I'm still going to go down great because I have this career, I have a great house, I have a job. But they don't realize that when you eventually do settle down, retire, or whatever, you do reflect just like that NBA player will. Like, you know, damn, I went down as the greatest in the stat arena, but I didn't achieve the ring part. So to me, that was very profound. But
great analogy. Wow. Yep.
Yeah, I do look at a lot of situations where I feel like women rest on their laurels, and they are thinking to themselves, well, I can wait on marriage. You know, I don't want to have to share resources. I don't want to have to share time. You know, I'm the prize, and you know, a man needs to accept me regardless. And they don't realize that there has never been anything that tells you as a woman that you are the prize except people saying you should be the prize. You know, I've asked this question to women before. Where does it say, you know, like for instance, where does it say that anywhere in any rule book per se, the Bible or anywhere where it says I'm supposed to or I'm required to open a door for you or I'm supposed to do this for you or do that for you? That's never been established. That's just something that it came along from another human and it was said. And it's like all of a sudden it became gospel. Like a man is a real man, quote unquote, if he holds the door, he pays for everything, if he does this, if he does that. And it's just like the problem with that is it's created a huge sense of entitlement with women, unfortunately, where they feel like you're supposed to do that just because. Well, what are you supposed to do? And then they get offended. Rather than even answer the question, they get offended.
Exactly.
How dare you?
Exactly.
Hold the line on that, Solomon. Ted, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you think?
Well, he's nailing something. So, you know, if a woman feels like, well, if you don't do all these things, I'm not going to marry you, and you could be a really great guy and have a great marriage, but, you know, aside from having the ring on her finger, why are we getting married? Because, to be honest, the whole idea of dating is, if my job is to take you out and take you to expensive dinners and travel and I've got to show you excitement, the last thing that's happening in that process is I'm never getting to know you. It's sort of under very false circumstances that I get to see, but I don't really get to see who you are. So I don't know if it's worth investing the rest of my life and my hard-earned money in someone I don't even know. But the woman may feel that, well, she was taught that all she has to do is give you sex and maybe cook sometimes, and some of the women don't even know how to cook. But if she gives you sex, you should be happy, and you should put a ring on her finger, and you should pay for everything, you know, even when we're married. So
that goes to that.
You're bringing up something. Yep, exactly.
And, you know, if I could add, it's deep because I feel like that has created, especially in our generation, you know, I'm 35, but in today's time, that's created what I call the emotional thinker generation. You know, there's a lot of emotional thinking going on with everything, but mainly with that process you just spoke of, because it's like now if you even question that, as a man, you're attacked. You're considered less than. You're not a real man. Some women go as far as to call you homosexual because a real man doesn't question what a woman is about. They should just be focused and be happy that they have a woman that might be willing to give them some sex, and some that they'll get that sex, and then they get married, and then the woman uses that as a control mechanism, and then it becomes, well, why are you so you only got married to have sex? And it's like, no, I'm human. I desire you.
You know, Solomon, you hit the nail on the head. That, you know, typically when you hear anybody that says a real man will do X, Y, Z, it's usually followed up by something that they want the man to do, and it's like you said, it's a control, manipulative way of speaking about something, of speaking about getting men to do something. Because as I tell women, you can't even define what a man is. I can't define what a woman is. I'll be the first to tell you. Never said a real woman is this. No, I don't. I can only tell you what kind of woman most men like. That's all I can do. So if I can't do that, then how could you possibly tell what a real man is?
Hey, Solomon, you're 35. If you have your choice of a woman, would you marry a 40-year-old woman?
Honestly, I can't say I wouldn't. Here's why.
No. But I'm asking you, if your first choice, would you seek a woman younger than you, or at 35? And if, let's say I don't know if you have children, but if you have no children, you're 35. Are you first going to look for a 40-year-old woman, or are you going to look for a younger woman as a first choice?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I see the context. No, I definitely would look my age or younger. For me personally, I wouldn't want a woman too young because, you know, I know we can look at things as molding the woman, but I necessarily wouldn't have the patience for that too much molding. But no, I definitely would look at my age, or maybe a 5-year range, maybe, you know, nothing more than 29. I would say 6 years would be my limit.
Okay.
In that.
So what do you think of women who hold off, like this article about the way they do it in China? Do you think that's in a woman's best interest to just hold out?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Why?
I think, you know, I do still believe in the sanctity of marriage, because the reality is, you know, that's what things are set on when it comes to transfer of wealth, generational wealth, and resources and stuff like that. But I do feel like the longer you wait, it's like now the generation we're in and our men that are waking up, it's like now we're asking those questions. What value do you have? You know, why should I marry you? You know, now you're at 40 years old, even physically, unless you're Angela Bassett or something along that line.
Right.
What value do you have at that age where I should you know, look at you as a helpmate? You know, and that's a very valid thing. You know, I think men are starting to ignore the deflections and the attacks and all that. And they're asking those questions because, again, marriage, you know, it doesn't benefit us as much as it does a woman. You know, I know actually I do have 3 children, and I do want them to see me and their mother together. But outside of that, you know, looking at the system it has always been, you know, if I'm a guy that I hit the lottery or I become wealthy, it's always there that guess what? If me and mom don't work out, she gets half of my assets. You know, and she can get me child support. And if we're married, that's court ordered. So it's like, you know, she came in a relationship with a duffel bag and a couple of boxes in the car, and I had all this wealth. How does she get half? That's not fair. Right. You get what I'm saying? And there's other ways she can use the system to torture us with, so to speak. I call it torture. That men traditionally have never had as weapons. So it's like when you look at it that way, like a woman always has the advantage with marriage. Like she has more to gain than we do.
Right.
Than we do.
Right.
Than we do.
Right.